Hey, what up, boxing fans? This is the Rope-A-Dope Report. I am your host, Chris Carlson. Like I said plenty of times, check out the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast anytime. You can subscribe on iTunes. Check it out on blogtalkradio.com /Rope-A-Dope Radio. That's available live or anytime, live on Wednesdays. Stitcher, SoundCloud, the whole nine. Also, give me a follow at Twitter at Rope-A-Dope Radio if you want to chop it up, go back and forth about boxing or sports or, social stuff too. Just jokes, everything on Twitter. Anyway, let's get back to it. Now, a lot of times I don't have Saturday night off. I watch the fights late night Saturday or sometimes on Sunday and Monday on the DVR. To watch all of them. So I wasn't able to watch every single solitary fight that night. I did have the night off. But I think I'm just going to start to do kind of a weekend recap on Monday nights, Sunday or Monday, something like that. So just, be on the look for it. Anyway, let's get into this weekend. HBO and Showtime both had really fun, great cards, no doubt about it. All action fights on the HBO doubleheader, which on paper seemed like it was going to be that style. And they definitely matched them up right. And, we had a highlight knockout, one of the best knockouts of the year so far. I mean, probably the best knockout of the year so far. It'll probably hold up as a candidate by Mikey Garcia. I guess the only bad thing about this weekend, and we're used to it now because it happens a handful of times a year, but it would have been nice if HBO had this in a couple of weeks, Both of them were great cards, and to be able to have their own shine on a given night would have been better. And I know that it's not like, although this one was Indio, California, which they probably could have reserved that same venue a handful of weeks down the line. Maybe they don't. I know that boxing, like arenas around the country, aren't just open all the time for boxing. You know what I mean? So maybe this is the date that worked best, and they wouldn't have had a date for a while. Maybe HBO wanted to get it out of HBO tends to do a card in January, no doubt about it. It would have been nice. But, we see that happen in December. It happens throughout the year. So no big deal. It would have been nice, though, because it's going to hurt both their ratings a little bit. You know what I mean? Anyway, let's start with, because I already did a Santa Cruz Frampton. If you want to check out that video, you can. I did that right after the fight. So we won't be talking about that. We'll talk about the other three fights. Let's get Mikey Garcia out of the way, though, because that's what he did to Zlaticanin, right? I thought the first couple rounds could be dangerous. Anytime you're facing a puncher, the first couple rounds, when you're trying to figure out the style, when you're cold. And in this sense, some ring rust still we thought maybe would be coming off. He only had one, for Mikey, he only had one fight in about 3 years, really. So I didn't know what to expect early. I thought that's basically where he's at his most vulnerable state. And once he got past that, I thought he'd catch up to the style and just pick him apart, maybe stop him late, maybe win by a competitive fight. That wasn't the case. The jab, the 1-2 right off the bat, some flashy combinations, couple of exchanges, but not much to speak of. He was just outclassing him from the first bell, really, Mikey Garcia was. Zlaticanin never really got his full style going. Like I said, he only landed a handful of meaningful punches in the fight, and when he did, he had one coming right back at him. But it was a beautiful, beautiful uppercut. He dodged, I think it was a jab. He dodged a shot, tried to hit him with the left. It wasn't there. Hit him with a perfectly timed uppercut with his right hand. And that kind of spun off. Like Zlaticanin looked like he was trying to grab the rope, or Mikey or whatever. Mikey smartly kind of did the ninja, kind of, got out of position, got back into position, and waited for him to kind of come to a little bit, because he was out on his feet potentially. Zlaticanin was. And he kind of turned and was almost by the rope, basically near the rope. Wasn't quite on the rope, but he wasn't facing him all the way. And Mikey did the smart thing, gave himself some space, didn't allow himself to get tied up from a hurt fighter, and then just zapped him with the right hand. And thank God that Zlaticanin got up, man, because for a while there, and that's maybe why it was even more brutal than it possibly could have been, because he may have been near out on his feet, and then they get hit again. He could have already had like a walking concussion as it was. But then when he got hit with that second shot, that was just brutal, man. But like I said, Zlaticanin got up, thank goodness, and just a spectacular highlight reel knockout. And right now, you can look at Easter Jr., who has a stay busy fight and then a tough fight with Shafikov if he chooses to keep his belt and do his mandatory. The winner of that would be a good fight. Flanagan overseas would be an interesting fight. It'd be big over there, that's for sure. And, of course, the winner of Jorge Linares and Anthony Crolla, just to, shouts out to my UK fans out there. Anthony Crolla is spectacular. Anyway, that's a good fight. I'm glad they're having the rematch of that fight. That's on Showtime coming up here in a couple months. I don't know. I mean, Easter Jr. has that height, but can he get through Shafikov? We don't know that for a fact. That's for sure. I don't know. I really don't know who can mess with Mikey at 135. I think he should, though, stay at 135 and see if he can get some good fights, earn some money, unify, become the best, not just on paper, but try to get the fights, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't doubt if it's just a good, solid opponent next, because, some of the fighters that he's going to fight, or potentially, would be next, they're fighting. So they're going to need some time off between those fights as well. But like I said, it's nice to have Mikey Garcia back. And with a performance like that, that puts him back on my top 10 pound-for-pound list, I got to say. Not just because of that individual performance, but it shows he's back, he's sharp, he's ready to go. And from his past, transgressions in the ring, right? So all that kind of adds up to that. So that puts a bow on the Showtime. The HBO card, both of them were very good. I knew this double header, although it didn't have a ton of meaning at the weight, it was really just in what looked to be a really great style matchup in both of them. And Miura and Vargas, they were thinking that they get by these guys and then maybe like a summer rematch at the StubHub or something, or the Forum, or I don't know, something like that. You know what I mean? That would have been great. But as we know in boxing, it doesn't always turn out that way. Let's talk about the undercard. Mickey Roman, just a vet, solid vet, 56-11 with 43 KOs. I think that was his record. I'm looking at, I think that's a 6. Against Miura. Is it Miura or Miura? I think it's Miura. Takashi, though, 30-3 with 2 draws and 24 KOs. Actually, has got 31 wins, of course. It was kind of a tentative start by both. I gave it to Takashi the first round. I thought some late shots that landed really, really hard to the body could have stole the round 2 for Roman. But then Miura, for me, went on a couple of rounds in a row. Good action, definitely good back and forth action, but the left hands and some of this two-way action, I thought that Miura was getting the better of it. But then midway through, right around the 5th round, I thought Roman, he went on a stretch there. I gave him the 5th, 6th, and 7th. That aggression, very aggressive, right? Just landing some just hard flush crosses, just really, just back and forth still. But man, Roman was digging into the body. He was starting to wear down Miura, who had gotten off to a good start. I believe what I put, the 3 out of the first 4 rounds I gave to Takashi. Then, though, the 8th round, there was an accidental headbutt that caused a cut. And Miura came out so aggressive in that round. He was swinging for the fences, showing his heart. A lot of heart in all these fights, but especially these 2 fights on HBO. So the 9th round, the aggressor, landing some thudding shots in the 9th round. 10th round, Miura froze Roman with a couple of times in the first 80 seconds. Then some more body work. A headshot, then a left hand to the body caused the knockdown. That was in the 10th, the 11th, midway through. There was combinations, maybe 7 or 8 in a row. That knocked him down. Another knockdown. In the 12th, a straight left hand, just measured it perfectly. It was a wrap. 40 seconds into that, it was a knockout. And what a great, nice little comeback, because it did look like Takashi was starting to wear down there. So ebbs and flows, both of them had momentum, and the other guy would kind of take it from them. Punch stat, though, Roman was busy, man. He threw 815 and landed 31% of his shots compared to 587. So he definitely outworked him. He landed more, too, 254 to 228. Miura, though, was a little more accurate at 39%, but both these guys were just going in, man. And Miura's a fun fighter to watch, man. He does have some skill, but most of it is like I'm gonna throw most of my shots very hard and try to knock you out. You know, he's a fun fighter to watch, and who knows? Maybe in the upset, since we got in the main event, I should say, since we got the upset by Berchelt. What is it? Berchelt, I think it is. He upset Francisco Vargas. And heading into this fight, I thought Vargas would be able to get by in this fight. Clearly, he needed more rest. And maybe even another 3 or 4 or 5 months, maybe that wouldn't have done a damn thing. You know what I mean? Physically and mentally rest, and obviously the scar tissue to let that heal up as much. But he's going to need surgery, and that may not even do anything. It's just in the fights, maybe the cuts will be more manageable. A lot of times that's what happens. Those surgeries don't necessarily heal the cuts where they won't break open. They just break open a lot less, as far as it's not such an open gash like Vargas had. But like I said, they were trying to set up the rematch for this fight, so they obviously thought they'd beat Berchelt, but that wasn't the case. Vargas, I did think he was a tad busier in the early goings in the first round, but then the second, third, and the fourth I gave to Berchelt. There were two-way rounds. I mean, shit, just in the I wrote down the punches for round 2, 37 to 31. That's lands. So they were getting it in. There was no filling each other out, barely at all. Vargas, he was aggressive, but he also got hurt in that round. Action-packed last 60 seconds, too. At times in these rounds, the early rounds, Vargas would start out well, but then he'd give it up and end up usually getting the worst of it in the exchanges. I did give a little mid-round, or midway, not mid-round, but midway through the fight, I did give Vargas the 5th and the 6th. It was back and forth, but to me, and that's when actually, I think the 5th round, was it the 5th or 6th at Vargas, that's when he sustained that cut. It started, really bleeding pretty bad. But to me, the body work, he was active. He actually threw in a little bit of head movement, which was, kind of strange. But Berchelt, late in that 6th round, landed some hard shots. Some people may, give him that round. I don't know. But either way, it really didn't matter because he didn't lose a round after that. I mean, the 8th could have went either way. I'll say that. Both of them were landing in combination. It was definitely good. But Berchelt, when Vargas would do something, it seemed like Berchelt would always have an answer, and he'd always, rally back. The eye started bleeding really heavily by the 8th and 9th round. The aggression was just taking over. Vargas still showing his heart in the 10th round, but it wasn't going to be enough. The jab, the right hand, just really starting to get to Vargas. And Vargas was active actually in the 11th, surprisingly, but then he got clipped with a hard shot, and then it was just hard shot after hard shot after hard shot. TKO, I believe, about mid-round of the 11th round. And when you look at the CompuBox on this, both of them almost threw 2,000 punches. Vargas threw 1,032. He landed 32%. He landed 330. That's a hell of a lot of lands. But then you have a guy that's just a little less active in 497, right? But he landed 45% of his overall shots. Berchelt did. He landed 430, so 430 to 330 and 430 punches. When your output is 330 and throwing over 1,000, like you rarely see that. And a lot of times, maybe it'd be at the smaller weight classes. Not that this isn't at a smaller weight class, but it would be more arm punches when it's both guys landing like this, I mean, that's what comes to mind. Or just two dudes that are going to stand right in front of you and go for it. And Berchelt was the fresher of the two. And down the stretch, he just wouldn't be denied. So a great, great win. And you wonder what's next, Obviously, Golden Boy losing, Francisco Vargas in this fight. They don't have many fighters right now that they make money off of beyond Canelo. And I don't know, man. What I do know, though, is probably a round or two earlier this could have been stopped, this fight. I mean, he took a savage beating. He really did, Vargas. Then I would say for sure, it's easy for me to sit there and say, I don't know what he's getting paid per fight or what he's done with his money or if he's given it to charity or blown it or who knows. I have no clue. I'm not going to speculate like I do, but he needs to shut it down. Clearly, Francisco Vargas has been a hell of a warrior. The last 2 years he's won Fight of the Year, or at least they should have been Fight of the Years or at least the top three, no matter how you look at it, right? So, and most people gave him the Fight of the Year, the most media outlets anyway. So he's had a great career, a pretty solid career, right? But they need to shut him down. I doubt he's the same. I mean, he's definitely not going to be the same, and he wasn't the same after the first round or two. He wasn't the same after that Salido fight and the Miura fight that he was losing, To his credit, he came back and won that. I thought Salido, won that fight against him. But, yeah, I'd say shut it down for Vargas. And Miura Berchelt would be a great fight. I don't know who has Berchelt, to be honest with you. And I wouldn't doubt if it ends up in a different country. I really don't know. I don't know who has Berchelt. So I don't know if HBO would be like, yeah, let's even though it's not the matchup we wanted out of both these fights, let's match them up anyway. I really don't know if they have plans for both of these guys. You know what I mean? Like they did with the rematch here. So anyway, I'm going to get out of here. That's the weekend wrap on the Rope-A-Dope Report. Like I said, check out the podcast anytime. Give a call in too. You can just, listen on your phone, chill out. A lot of people do that. But if you're on the go, if you're at the, working out at the club, you got to do grocery stuff, shopping, you're driving. Maybe you work the overnight shift. Give it a listen anytime there on the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast. Tell me what you guys thought of the weekend, man. It was a phenomenal weekend, man. This January was just awesome. And when you look at what's on the schedule for the next couple months, man, February is not crazy busy in the way of big fights. It's more like steady. But March, April is just it's jam-packed, man. So we're going to have a great boxing year. Coming off a very lackadaisical, mediocre year, right? Mediocre to kind of crappy year at times in 2016. So it's good that boxing is definitely back as far as the schedule. Now let's see if it picks up more steam. Anyway, I'm out of here. You guys take it easy. Until next time, peace.